All right, so who was with us on Father's Day outside? Okay, so if you were there, you remember the bird moment. Yeah. If you weren't there, there was literally a little baby bird that came and landed next to me on the stage. I was speaking, and a bunch of people were like, oh, oh. And I'm like, what did I say? And then I realized, I look, and I'm like, there's a bird. I didn't know what to do. So I picked it up, and it let me pick it up. And I set it on the music stand, and it just chilled with me for a while. Took a dump on my notes even, but it was there for a bit. And so afterwards, I went up to my wife and my daughters, and I said, hey, I have a new name. I would like you to start to call me the bird whisperer. To which my wife informed me that the three of them have already powwowed and come up with a name for me. Do you remember that scene in Cinderella when all the birds were flying around her? Here's a picture to jog your memory if you don't. Yeah, so my wife looks at me and goes, oh no, we're going to be calling you Cinderella from now on. I was like, what? No, bird whisperer. I mean, weirdest moment ever, but I was going to take the bird whisperer name. Not a fan of Cinderella, so whatever. It is what it is. I've been called much worse, I guess. Here's part of what I want to talk about today is the power of name. Especially as a follower of Jesus, what do we bear as a name, and is the name truly reflective of our identity? Because it's actually possible at times to have a name that you are proud of, not Cinderella, something you are proud of, but still isn't as true of who you really are any more than Cinderella would be, whether or not I like that one or not. So, for example, for my entire life, my family has story upon story upon story of our Irish heritage. We are Irish. I mean, through and through. Matter of fact, my brother Nick, I don't think I've ever seen him out of his dirty green Irish, I am Irish, kiss me because I'm Irish, whatever. Like, it's always Irish this, Irish that. And we have stories. I mean, there are stories of apparently coming over on the boat and all just history. And there is a pride that our family has had that we are Irish. Well, a couple years ago for my dad's birthday, we did the 23andMe test. Have I told you this yet? Yeah, so my dad gets a hold of us all. He's like, hey, I've got news for everybody. I'm like, what's the news? Well, here's the news. Put it on the screen. We're not Irish at all. That little bar thing came back with like 2% Irish, and the rest of it's Scottish. We're like, what? So my brother, he is refusing to admit it. He doesn't want to agree to it. He's like, I'm Irish. I'm like, no, you're not. I don't care. You can have the name. It's not truly who we are. So I guess we're just going to claim our William Wallace heritage, and we are Scotsmen. So, but it was just this really weird moment, because I'm not kidding you. For our entire family, the stories have been that we're Irish, and then all of a sudden we find out that this name that was such a sense of pride for us was actually only a name. It wasn't truly reflective of who we were as a family. And here's the thing, that can be just as true for us on a level of culture or ethnicity or heritage as it can be spiritual. It is actually possible to bear the name of a Christian far more, and even potentially only in name and not identity. And so what's happened a lot of times in the church world is we will create systems and methods to try to monitor and measure the legitimacy of whether or not we actually are one. Like, are we a follower? To prove to ourselves, to prove to others. Here's the problem, is that so often in the church world, what we default to when we try and create this categorization of whether or not we are indeed a true follower of Jesus is we just develop a bunch of lists of rules, of do's and don'ts. And the better you can be at keeping the do's and the don'ts, the more reflective you are of actually legitimately being a follower of Jesus. There's one really small problem with that. Matter of fact, I'll let Jesus explain in his own words what the problem is. Matthew chapter 7. Probably some of the most sobering things that Jesus ever said. Verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. And many of you will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform miracles? And this is maybe some of the most frightening thing that Jesus ever said. And then I will tell you plainly, I never knew you. So away from me, you evildoers. It's actually possible to bear the name and not the identity. It's even possible, according to Jesus, that in bearing the name of a follower of his, to do so much in his name for him, because of him, to begin to chip away at the lists and still be confronted with him face to face one day where he says, I never knew you. It was your name. It wasn't your identity. So for the next 8 weeks, what we're going to do for most of the summer is we're going to sit in a series and try and ask, what does it really mean to truly be a follower of Jesus, not merely in name, but also in identity? And how do we do that? And as we do, we're going to frame it in 3 different statements or phrases that you're going to hear throughout this whole series. On your screen, they are these. Be with Jesus, be like Jesus, and do what Jesus did. And so throughout this whole series, as we're talking about what does it mean to actually be by identity a follower of Jesus, a disciple of Jesus, we're going to constantly come back to those 3 phases. It means to be with him, to be like him, and to do what he did. And some of you, I get it, as we're like getting into this whole series, you might be in a very different place this morning. Some of you you're all in. You're like, hey, I am a follower of Jesus. For some of you, I think we're going to have to do some investigation. And we're going to have to ask ourselves, am I more by name than identity? But there's also some of you that maybe in the room or watching online, you're like, I'm not necessarily calling myself a follower of Jesus and don't know if I even want to be. And I think that could be for a variety of different reasons, but I have found time and time again that so often one of the top reasons that many have said, hey, I don't know about wanting to follow Jesus, is because they have encountered too many people that are so by name and not identity. And so what my hope for you, if you're going, I don't even know if I want to be a follower of Jesus, is that throughout the next several weeks, if you will stick with us in this series, is that you will get a clearer picture of what it actually means to be a disciple than maybe you've ever gotten before. And not just what it means, but how to do it. How to follow Jesus, why to follow Jesus, and what it should all look like. And just maybe through that, it could strip away a little bit of perhaps the negative influence or impact you've had from those that bore more the name than they did the identity. So I just want to ask that Jesus would speak, would be clear, we would hear. I do believe he talks. I believe he talks through his written word. I believe he talks in everything that we try to do together, whether it's a conversation, he can talk through those. I believe he talks through the things that we bring on a Sunday morning. And I think sometimes he just talks in a way that stirs inside. It'll have nothing to do with something I say today or anything that you hear audibly, but there will just be a way that you have to give ear to what he says. It stirs something inside your soul. So I'm going to pray that we'll have the ability to hear however it is he chooses to talk to us when he does. So Father, I just come before you this morning. And Jesus, even kneeling right now and think about the fact that I am so in front of really the communion that we'll celebrate later, I just want to keep saying thank you to you. Jesus, even thinking of that song we sang, I'm going to see a victory. And thinking this morning that has a very different meaning for some of us. And that some of us right now, we are experiencing something in our lives where we could honestly say God is being victorious in this moment or situation. But some of us have had diagnosis that we didn't want, and it does not feel like a victory. And what we're clinging to is the ultimate victory that is right here on this table that we'll celebrate later today. The victory that no matter what this life does or takes or doesn't provide, that you, Jesus Christ, will ultimately one day prevail over it all. That you did on the cross, and that you one day stand from your throne and prove it. And so, Jesus, I just pray in anticipation of even how we will celebrate that at the end of the day, that between now and then you would speak to us about what it means to be you, to be like you, to be with you, and to do what you did. And so I pray that you would help, whether we are brand new to our journey with you or whether we have been on this journey for decades, you would help something, Holy Spirit, from your mind and your mouth and your heart to penetrate our minds and our hearts in a fresh way that brings life to places that need life within us, revelation to places that need revelation, and ultimately draws our hearts closer to you, and our affections would just be roused more and more for you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Hey, we're real quick, we're going to stop and we're going to take up our offering before we jump further in. This is the end. Some of you know this. This is the end of our fiscal year as a church. We run a little bit different. We don't go calendar year. And so I just want to say thank you as we've kind of wrapped things up in the last couple of weeks. It has been great as the first time watching that happen here at Ridge Point, just to see the incredible amounts of generosity that are pouring in. I mentioned to you last week that how we end the year sets us up for how we're going to not just start, but really be able to go through the next year. And we got just a little bit to go still, but you have been helping us get incredibly strong to the end of the year. So I just want to thank you so very much, because this really does help push us into all that God has. I think things that we already know and we're planning for, as well as being available for all that God has for us next year that we're not even yet available for, we're not ready for, but he's going to say, hey, I've got this planned, I had this ready, and he's just going to give it to us. You're helping us be prepared and ready for those moments. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your generosity. All right, quick question. Hopefully set us up for the rest of the morning. Here's your question. What would you say that Ridge Point is in the business of? If you just think about this for a minute, what would you say that Ridge Point is in the business of? And I want to say this real quick too. I know we're not a business. Matter of fact, if I get personal soapbox for a moment, I have a personal passion to destroy a bit of language that I've heard in and around, haven't heard it here, but I've heard it in and around the church world for a while, and it's just this. We are an organization. No, you're not an organization. God already gave us the distinction by which to identify ourselves, and it's an organism. We're a body. We're not an organization. We're an organism. Organism has organizational qualities to it, but an organism is an organism. It is a body, not an organization. So all that just to say, when I ask a question like, what are we in the business of? Just hear my heart. We're not a business. However, if you had to identify what this organism, this body is in the business of, I wonder what you would say we're in the business of. Matter of fact, I'd love you to just do this. If you're comfortable, turn to somebody next to you just really quickly and just go, hey, I don't know, maybe this is what we're in the business of. Have a little powwow moment, would you? Wow, that's quick. You guys must know the answer already. I mean, the thing is, here's the thing. I'm sure that somebody in here, many of us in here, we got right in there. We nailed it, or you're like, oh, I know what the business of the church is. But if we're honest, if you look around the landscape of the church world, there's a lot of confusion over what the business of the church is. You look at the way certain churches conduct themselves, or mission statements, or their programming, and it would seem like they're in the business of just gathering a crowd. We're in the crowd-making business. Or you can begin to believe in some settings that maybe the business of the church is helping humanity, bettering humanity, counseling humanity, being able to care for people. Or you could say we're in the human flourishing business. We want not just our people, but we want the world to flourish, to become a better representation of who God has made us as image bearers to be. So we're in the human flourishing business. Or you might say we're in the entertainment business. I mean, you look at some churches, it would seem like, well, you're in the entertainment business. Or sadly, there's the group of people that would make us believe we're in the money-making business. A lot of our TV evangelists and others that it's all about if you give, God shakes it together and gives it back tenfold. We're in the money-making business. There are a lot of things that God has left up to us to determine in any local expression of the church who we are and how we do it and how we function. The one thing he has not left up to any of us is to determine and decide what we're in the business of. He already did that. Matthew chapter 28. Here's what Jesus clearly describes and explains as the business of the church. And then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some still doubted. And then Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. The imperative statement in these verses is not go, it's make disciples. The job of the church, the business of the church, is to make disciples. That's what we're in the business of. Anybody get it? Anybody have it? Yeah, that's what we're in the business of, is to make disciples. Matter of fact, you might even, if you added a little bit to that, if you kind of drew out that idea when he says go and make disciples on your screen, maybe a little bit more drawn out definition would be Jesus saying this: as you go, wherever you go, while you're on the go, here's your business, is to go and make disciples. That's our business. Now, if you're going to go and make disciples, we first have to be what? We have to be a disciple. So here's the question: what's a disciple? What does it look like to be a disciple? Because here's where the church can get dangerous, is this is where we can easily slide into the rules. It's about how good you can be at keeping the rules, ignoring the wrong ones and grabbing onto the right ones, and that's where we kind of start to classify and we gravitate towards. So what does it mean to be a disciple if it's not merely about the rule keeping? I mean, that's our effort, and that's where everything for this whole series is really going to begin. And that's our question for today, because everything that we'll talk about for the next 8 weeks is really going to radiate from this: an understanding of what a disciple is, what a disciple does, and an honest evaluation of whether or not we actually are. Like, hopefully throughout this series, there will be a moment that you'll have you and Jesus in a private moment, in an honest moment, with nothing to hide and nothing to fear, to just be able to say, am I really one of your disciples? And if not, and I'm more name than I am identity, what needs to change? But if our directive is go and make disciples, then it starts first with us asking, are we a disciple? So Jesus actually gives probably one of the most quoted descriptions of what a disciple is in Matthew chapter 16. Matthew chapter 16, verse 24 and 25, Jesus once said this: and then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. When you talk about discipleship, this is probably one of the most quoted things Jesus has ever said: take up your cross and follow after me. And he puts a whole lot into this as well. Now, I'll be honest with you, just for me, maybe this isn't, you go, this doesn't apply to me. I'll just say this is for me, and I think some of you will agree. There are some real problem words in those verses. Like, if we're going to be a follower of Jesus and a genuine disciple of Jesus, he goes, okay, here's some of what it means: deny yourself, pick up your cross, lose your life, and do it daily. Like, there are some problem words in there when it comes to the way that most of us are told we have to form our lives. Let's just start with deny yourselves. Nothing about the culture we live in encourages self-denial. It is self-gratification. There's a big part of us that even as followers of Jesus, we're like, yeah, deny myself. Like, man, I really don't want to, though. Or how about cross? Okay, you can be my disciple, pick up your cross. A cross has one purpose, and it is pain. And I don't know about you, but I don't want a life of pain. I prefer joy and pleasure and comfort. And Jesus says, want to be my disciple? Pick up your cross. Like, that's a problem. And then he says, let's do it daily. Like, wouldn't it be really nice if it was just a Sunday thing? He's like, hey, on Sunday, you're going to have to sweat it out for me. But the rest of the week, take it easy. You're like, okay, I can do this. I can be in for once a week. He's like, no. This is a daily thing. And then how about loses? You must lose your life to find it. Like, I don't know about you. Anybody competitive in here? I'm uber competitive. I do not like to lose at anything. I have one child that was been born with the same amount of competitiveness. I am so sorry, Corinne. God, pass that on to you. But I remember even when you were young, I didn't ask your permission to share this. Can I share this? I can, thank you. We would sit at the table in the kitchen, and she'd watch me take a bite of cereal, and then she'd take 2. And then I'd take 3. And then she'd go faster. And it was like just in her nature to be. Listen, when Jesus says, hey, part of being a disciple is lose your life for me, everything inside me goes, no. I want to win, conquer, compete, competitive. Like, I don't want to lose. My nature is not to want to lose. So I read these verses, and the truth is, as easy as we may recall it to memory, maybe we have recounted it to other people, there are some problems in those verses to how we are told in this world to live if Jesus is to say to us, above the world, be my disciple. And you might go, okay, yeah, that's a great point. Why then, if Jesus wants us to be his disciples, like, he's not trying to turn us off from it, Why is this how he describes it? Like, why not make it a little bit easier? Because truth be told, a disciple more by name than true identity is a lot easier and a lot less painful. I think in part it's because Jesus is trying to have a sincere, honest DTR moment with his followers. You know what DTR is? Come on, millennials. Yeah, define the relationship. I think part of what Jesus is doing to a crowd of people, many of which, as his teachings get harder, are going to eventually say, yeah, we're out. Is he saying, hey, I'm not going to bait and switch you, but I do want to have an honest, sincere moment where I won't pull the wool over your eyes. Let's define this relationship. Who I am to you, who you are to me, what you want from me and what I want from you. Let's define the relationship. Because there's a lot of important things, obviously, Jesus said in those collection of verses. Lose your life, pick up your cross, do it daily, deny yourself. But I want to give most of the attention to where he began, because it wasn't with pick up your cross. That's not where he started. You remember where he started? Did you catch it? Where he started was with this phrase, whoever wants to be. It wasn't with deny yourself, it was whoever wants to be. Here's my question to you. Do you? I mean, that's the question of the series. Do we want to actually be a disciple of Jesus? Years ago, I coached my girls when they started playing soccer pretty early on. Did with my son, then moved on to helping coach them. But I never played soccer growing up. Didn't really understand the game all that well. But you know when your kids are young enough that all you have to do is really run. Put that there. Like, I can do that. I can motivate some kids. But as they got older, there was a certain point where I realized, okay, they're probably getting to a point where I need to not be their coach. Like, they need somebody that actually gets the game a little bit better and gets that. Like, I probably shouldn't be. So these emails go out to all the parents of the new team that they're joining. You know, they're always asking for help, especially at the league that they were in at that time. So trying to figure out what parent has the time, what parent maybe has a background. Have you ever coached? Have you ever done blah, blah, blah? So, I'm not going to say who in my family, but my wife decided to volunteer me as somebody that had a whole background coaching before and that maybe I could help. So I'm like, babe, I don't have the time for this. I think we're at a busy kind of season of life. And I think they're just at a level that they need somebody. So I gave her all the excuses. And so then I get the roster. And at the top of the roster is Coach Mike and Coach Craig. I was like, what? So I get a hold of Coach Mike. I was like, listen, I can't do it, and here's why. Blah, you go through all the things. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Well, your wife's, I know, I love her, but yeah, no, I can't. And so he's like, okay. I said, well, listen, let's talk when we get to the field for the first practice when I get there, and we meet each other, and I'll explain more. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's great. So I get there. We have this 5, 6, 10-minute conversation. I felt like I very clearly defined the relationship, and the relationship was, I'm not your assistant coach. And it seemed like we got it. He's like, yeah, oh, no, I totally understand. I get it. I get where, yeah, good. Okay, we'll figure it out. All the parents start wandering in. A couple minutes later, they're all there standing in front of him, and he goes, hi, everybody. I'm Coach Mike, and this is Coach Craig. I was like, what the heck, man? So somebody took a picture of, like, the whole... That's literally what was happening as that moment. He's like, this is Coach Craig. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I thought we had a very clear define the relationship moment, and he did not agree with how I defined the relationship and instead pushed me into it. Here's what I love about Jesus. It is so perplexing to me, though, is that he will never push you into a relationship with himself. And in relationship, he will never push you further than you want to go, which is crazy because he's God. Like, he could just flat out say, you don't have an option. I'm God. This is the way it's made to be. And I know what's better for you. And I know this will be better for you. So I'm just going to force you into deeper relationship with me. I'm going to make you be my disciple. But he doesn't. Instead, he says as much to you and I as he did to his disciples, whoever wants to be. He will never push us into it, but he always invites us into it. Dallas Willard, who probably one of the more influential voices in the modern church era, wrote many books. One of them was called The Spirit of Disciplines. And this is something that he once said. The general human failing is that we want what is right and important, but at the same time, not to commit to the kind of life that will produce it. It's the conflict between trying to attain spiritual life while avoiding the disciplines that would transform us into the kind of people who have it. And then he would say this: the reason most people don't become fully devoted followers of Jesus is because they never intended to. If you want to be. So my question to you, again, do you want to be a disciple? Because the whole rest of the series, we're going to look at some of the key things that it means to be a disciple, to be with Jesus, to be like Jesus, to do what Jesus did. Like, how does that happen? But if it doesn't start first with an honest moment between you and Jesus of him saying to you, do you want to be? And you answering back honestly, yes. Or, frankly, maybe you don't want to. And I think God would much rather have you be honest with him, be it the answer he doesn't want, than to try and fake some phony Christianity to him and never actually attempt it. So it all begins with, do you actually want to be? And some of you might go, well, there's a whole lot of things in those verses you just read that I don't know if I want that for my life. Why would I want to be a follower of Jesus? Part of that I hope we will unfold as the series goes on, but I would just say this. At the deepest part of what I have experienced, truer than anything else in my life, and I believe more than anything else in my life as a result, is this: there is no life apart from the life of Jesus Christ flowing in and through you. And there is no experience of that unless you are willing to surrender your life fully and completely to him. And that doesn't mean you do it perfect all the time, but it means you have an honest moment of saying, yes, I want to be, and I want to make you Lord of my life, and I will be one of your disciples and walk with you, walk like you, and do what you did. And aside of that, I'm just telling you, my deepest experience and conviction in life, there is no real life apart from that. So why would you want to be? Why wouldn't you want to be? If there truly is a God, and his name is Jesus, and he has made all things, including you, this moment, every moment that will follow, and the scriptures are true that 1 year, 1 day, 1 moment in time, all of us will bend knee to him and acknowledge his lordship over all creation. Why would you not want the life that he promises and says, I am living water that will flow in you and through you? Some of us, man, you have been trying to produce living water in all of your own strength, and it's just a dry well. There are moments it fills up, and then it's dry again. And you keep running back to the same well, or you keep thinking you got to do something else, a new relationship, a new endeavor, a new conquest, a new amount in your bank account. And Jesus says, no. All of that is a well that eventually dries up. I am life, sustainable, abundant, eternal, full, present. Drink of me and you'll never thirst again, he once said. So is discipleship costly? Yeah, but I guarantee you this, it pays more than it ever costs. Because you know who it costs more than anyone? Not you and I. Him. So again, his question is, do you actually want to be one of my disciples? Throughout Jesus' life, he had a whole lot to say about discipleship. Matthew chapter 11 is probably, in many ways, one of the more poignant places I think he spoke about discipleship. But it gets lost in some of the other things that he said that gets most quoted from this passage. So I want you to see it, Matthew 11, verse 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. All right, just stop there for a minute. Anybody want to admit they could use some rest right now? Because he even goes on. It's not just rest like taking a nap. He's talking about rest for your soul as he goes on here. Like, I don't know about you, but I feel tired lately. This last 6 months has been a heck of a run for my wife and I. And it has been exciting. We are charged up for the future, but we're also realizing we're a little drained right now from the last couple of months. Selling house, buying house, all the things. So last week was the first time we left church and we were about to go home and do all the things. More boxes unpacked, more shelves to build. And we both just looked at each other and went, let's go to the beach. Like, we haven't done anything yet to just like enjoy being over here on the west side. Forget the house, the boxes will be there tomorrow. So we did, but the problem was it's the first time in like 6 months that we weren't doing something. We sat down on the beach. She goes, you gonna put on sunscreen? I'm like, not right now, maybe in like 10 minutes. I'm gonna get a little sun first. I laid back and I was gone. Like like drooling, dreaming, like that little shaky thing you do when you're out, like gone. 45 minutes just out. I woke up like, oh, something burns. I'm like, babe, why didn't you wake me up? She's like, you were sleeping so peaceful as I cooked in front of you. But we're like, I mean, that's where we're, like, so when you think rest for your soul, yes, sign me up, please. Here's the thing, though. This is where, and this is why I'm pointing this out, this is where we get stuck in this passage. This is so often what gets most of the attention, but it's not where he finishes. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and say it, what? My burden is light. Now, when you and I think of yoke, we think probably most naturally, most immediately, of a cattle yoke. This would have had a very different interpretation the minute Jesus' listeners would have heard it. I know many of you know this, but this would not have been heard the same way by Jesus' listeners as it is heard by you and I, because there was a rule-keeping group of people in Jesus' day called the Pharisees. Their job was to make sure that of the things to do and not to do, to not only do the best to model it for everybody, they thought they were perfect at it, but to also require everybody else to live up to this list of rules to prove that, in fact, you are a follower, you are a believer, you are one of Yahweh's. And so this list of rules over time grew larger and larger and larger because they just kept adding more and more things you had to do and couldn't do, to the point that it eventually became a list of 613 laws, split into two categories, positive and negative. 248 positive things, things to do, 365 negative things, things not to do. And these rule-keeping Pharisees, they were masters at criticizing, condemning, and measuring everybody up based on these rules. In addition to them, you also had this group of teachers whose job it was to read the rules, interpret the rules, and try to understand what they all meant and how to live them out, because some of them were just crazy. Now, that was the job of the rabbi. So you've got the Pharisees that are kind of the gatekeepers, and the rabbis who did a lot of the interpreting and a lot of the teaching of the rules. But what the rabbis also had the right to do is, as they were interpreting, they could add to the rules. So they could add their own personal interpretations in the form of rules that they then added on. So you might have, for example, one rabbi that says something like, you can spit on the dirt, but not on a rock. Another rabbi may say, you can carry your child on the Sabbath, but not if they have anything in their pocket, because then that's technically work, because they have a load that you're lifting. And so there are all these weird ways that the rabbis would start to interpret the laws themselves. And so they would then add to their interpretation even more rules and more laws on top of what already existed. For example, you've got Rabbi Shammai, who his interpretation of relationship and marriage was there is no means for divorce unless there's infidelity. But then you would have other rabbis, like Rabbi Hillel, who would teach that divorce could be for any reason you wanted, and it was even specified at one point, including if your wife burned your meal. Yikes. Right? And so you would get these different interpretations, and then you would get these different rules that the different rabbis would add on. And so people that would become students, apprentices of these rabbis, sometimes would choose what rabbi they wanted to learn under based on what their rules were. Because you go, well, I like that guy's, I don't like that guy's. And then it gets even weirder, because part of what you would do as a student kind of gravitating towards a rabbi is there was a tendency at times to gravitate towards the rabbis that had more rules. Guess what the rules were called? Yoke. The rules of the rabbis were called their yokes. And they were called their yokes because literally what they would do is they kept adding and adding and adding, is it just heaped this burden on top of people's shoulders that they had to carry. And the crazy thing is some people actually gravitated towards the heavier burden, because there was this idea, the bigger the yoke I can carry, the harder the rules, the loftier the list, the better I am in God's eyes. And so not only did you have more and more laws that were added, but you had this perverted way of thinking that if I carry the bigger yoke, my yoke is bigger than yours, I'm better in God's eyes than you're in God's eyes. And so you had this competing kind of, we're going to get God's attention by how good we can be and how heavy our yoke is that we can carry. And then in addition to that, it wasn't just anybody that could become the apprentice of the rabbi. It was the best of the best of the best of the best. It was the elite. It was varsity level kind of religious person only, and everybody else was boxed out, and men alone. As a woman, you were not invited into the opportunity to even apprentice with a rabbi. And so this is the world that Jesus is in. And so it's profound then when you understand that this new up-and-coming rabbi named Jesus shows up on the scene and begins to teach very intentionally, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Because what are all the other rabbis teaching? My yoke is heavy and my burden is wearisome. Can you carry it? And Jesus flips the script. He goes, no. My rules, my yoke is actually easy, and my burden is light. It's why he can then say, so if you actually follow me, you will find not just rest, but rest for your soul. What's everybody else finding as they follow the yokes of the other rabbis? Self-loathing, a sense of failure, competitive comparison, exhaustion, religion. And Jesus says, no. My yoke is entirely different. So much so that it actually will provide rest to your soul should you bear up my yoke. And not only does he flip the script of what it means to have the yoke and what his rules are, he opens up the floodgates of who could be one. It's no longer just the elite of the elite of the elite and men. It's everybody. The broken, the doubter, the skeptic, men, women, children. Literally, the floodgates are open. And he says, whoever wants to be. Not, hey, you perfect, elitist, grew up in the right family, in the right neighborhood, you've memorized the Torah. No, he says, anyone who wants to be. And this isn't in like a participation trophy kind of way, where Jesus was the first one to go, you never even got off the bench, but you get a trophy and you get a trophy. No, like this was a genuine, sincere offer to say, I want you on my team and I'll teach you how to be one. Like, can you imagine, I was thinking about it this last week. Can you imagine if Dan Campbell walked in here today? And if you don't know who Dan Campbell is, that's fine, that's okay, but you should start attending Third Coast. So Dan Campbell walks in the room and he looks at all of us and he says, hey, I want to make you a Detroit Lion. And you're like, I've never even thrown a football. He's like, doesn't matter. I'm going to make you a Detroit Lion. You're like, okay, what do I do? And he says, there's only one thing you have to do. You don't have to bring a pedigree to the table. You don't have to bring skill to the table. You don't have to ever played before. As a matter of fact, you literally don't even have to tell me what a football is. You maybe even never seen one. Here's all you have to do. When I walk out the door, you have to follow me. But if you do, I will teach you how to be one of the best that's ever worn the jersey. That's literally what Jesus has done. That's how ridiculous he just flipped the script. Is he walked into a room like this and said, hey, I'm saying to all of you now, not like the others, not like the other rabbis or the Pharisees and only a few of you. I'm saying to all of you, anyone who wants to be, you are welcome to be on my team. I want you on my team, and you don't need to do anything. You don't have to have your life together. You don't have to even understand who I am yet. You don't have to have the answers to all the things. You don't have to do anything yet except one thing, and this thing alone. As I walk, you follow me. And I will teach you how to wear this jersey like no one else can ever. And I will do the work to transform you into my disciple. This is why Jesus can actually say that his burden is light. It's easy. It's because he literally does the work. And this is the paradoxical nature of walking with Jesus. Is he says all these things like pick up your cross, do it daily, deny yourself. And they go, oh man, that is lofty. But then this is the paradox, is he says, okay, but if you follow me, guess what? I'll do it for you. Like, well, what do you mean you'll do it for me? Just follow me, I'll do the work for you. What do you think Paul meant when he once wrote that the power that raised Christ from the dead is in what? It's in us as followers of Jesus. The power that raised him from the dead is the same power that will empower us to do all that he expects. See, Jesus never started with his followers, his disciples, with an invitation that says, go follow the rules. It was follow me. That's very different. You can follow the rules and not follow him. That's where you're by name but not identity. He says, no. If you follow me, I'll teach you all the rest of it. Matter of fact, I won't even just teach it to you. I'll do it for you. I will accomplish it in you and through you. And I know if you're like me in my background and personality, I'm a doer, I'm independent. I grew up in a very, very traditional church setting where it's like work hard to keep. So there might even still be something in you that's like kind of kicking back a little bit. You're like, well, I know, but there's still some things we have to do, right? Like there's some lists we have to keep. Like it's not all on him to do it. Okay, well, let's read our Bibles a little bit on your screen. A couple verses here. These are Jesus' words, Matthew chapter 4, 14. And the king was sorry, but because of his oaths and his guests, that's not right. Somebody messed up and gave you the wrong verse there. That would be me. Sorry, guys. There was once Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he said to them, follow me, and I will make you. Do you remember what he said, if you know it? Okay, who's going to make you a fishers of men? Follow me, and I will make you. That's significant. I know these next ones are right, so bear with me here. Sorry about that. John 15, 4 through 5 on your screens. Remain in me, and I also will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you do what? Say it. Remain in me. There's a reality that the fruit that we bear for Jesus isn't working harder, isn't pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, isn't gritting our teeth to be a better Christian. It's remaining in him. Remaining in him, and then his fruit. Not our fruit. His fruit then is born when we stay close to him. Galatians. Again, the same sentiment of the vine and the branches and the fruit. You go to the book of Galatians, and this is what we read. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. All right, the fruit of who? Okay, not the fruit of go try harder. Not the fruit of follow the list better. Not the fruit of you screwed up again, so don't do it again. The fruit of the Spirit. That's his work. That's his production. What do? Well, Jesus just said it in John. You stay close to the vine. You stay attached to him. Next week, we're going to talk all about what it means to be with Jesus. But I do not want you to miss, as we're talking about discipleship, he is not placing this lofty expectation on you and I to walk out of here and go figure out all the do's and the don'ts and the rules and this burdensome life. He's saying, no. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. I'm not asking you to start with follow the rules. I'm asking you to start with, do you truly want to follow me? Will you follow me? Will you walk with me? Because true discipleship is not just learning more about Jesus and trying harder to be like him. True discipleship begins first and foremost of proximity, of closeness to Jesus, where it is less about what you know about him and far more about how you become like him. And yet somehow we have inverted that in the church world, where we make discipleship and following Jesus more about how much we can be like him. That happens, but it's not where it starts. It starts with, I want to be close to you. I want to be with you. I want to be attached to you. He says, that's where we begin. Follow me so that you will actually be like me. Not just know about me, not just quote things about me, but you will actually begin to reflect me because you're so close to me. There's actually an old Jewish custom that when a rabbi would take on a new apprentice, that there was a statement that was said to them as much of a blessing as it was a challenge. And this is what it was. Let your house be a meeting place for the sages, and may you sit in the dust of their feet. The idea is that you would follow so closely with your rabbi that as they walked in a very dirty environment without paved roads, they're kicking up dirt and dust. That dirt and dust is going into your face because you're that close to them. That you're not backing off a little bit just to keep the dust from. No, you want to be so close. That's what the idea of the statement is. That the dust of their feet, you're going to literally be sitting in it and you're going to be wearing it because you're that close to them. Here's my question. Do you think you follow Jesus that close right now that the dust of his feet is on your face? You might go, some days. Well, let me ask you this. Do you want to? Do you want to be that close to him? Because more importantly than whether or not you are is do you want to be? Because do you want to be determines will you be? Do you want to be that close to him? It's all about proximity with Jesus. I was thinking this last week about the best way that I could visualize what being this close to Jesus looks like. Because I've never been invited by a rabbi to be an apprentice, and neither will you likely. So what does it look like to be that close? And here's a picture I came up with. I'll need a little bit of help, I think, this morning. If you haven't heard yet, I've talked about it a few times. One of my favorite things to do and one of my hobbies is mountain bike. And I'll never forget when I taught my son years ago how to bike, there is a particular method in how to teach somebody how to mountain bike called the toe-in. Now the toe-in, and this probably could apply to other things as well, but this is my world. The toe-in is where you have to ride so close to the person that's in front of you that you can almost wreck with them. Because the idea is that when you're that close, you're going to be able to mimic their movements. They're going to set the speed. So sometimes, like if you're going into a drop, for example, you have to have a certain amount of speed if you're going to go off a ledge and into a drop. You go too slow, you just kind of over the handlebars. You go too fast, you're going to bounce off your tail. So there's a certain speed you want to go in. And if you don't know how to do that, you ask somebody that does know how, tow me in. And so the toe-in is literally, you're riding so close that you're almost kissing tires. It's almost like you're literally rope to rope, you're being towed in. Now, here's what happens if you're too far away. When my son first started riding, I said, Tobin, you got to be right on me, man. So even back up further. Go ahead, Matt, back up even further. I was like, listen, when we're riding, dude, you got to be right on my tire. I'll never forget, he goes, yeah, but if you crash, I'm going to run into you. I go, don't worry, I won't crash. And he goes, this is so cool. He goes, but if I crash, I'm going to fall into you. I go, exactly. And that's exactly how close you have to be to me. You've got to be right on me. Because what happens is, so if we're this far away and I start making moves, right? It's a little harder. You're gonna try and keep up with me. You're gonna try, but you're gonna be a little bit delayed. But if you get right on me, right? If we're right here and you're riding right next to me, now if I start to make a move, it's a little bit easier for you to stay in sync with me because you're right here. You're right on my tail. Now, here's what part of the problem is, too. If you're the guy in the back being towed in, guess what you're picking up? All my dirt, mud, and rocks. And so the funny thing about the guy getting towed in is at the end of it, you're a mess. And I had many rides with my son Tobin where at the end of it, he was with me, but he was carrying everything we just rode over. He's like, Dad, this isn't fair. I'm like, Dad's a better rider than you. Matter of fact, for Christmas, this is his bike. Mine's unfortunately in the shop, but this is his bike, and I bought this head cap for him years ago for Christmas. It says, my dad taught me. How's my dust, Tobin? So I wanted to make sure whenever he's riding, because eventually he got better and faster than me, I'm like, I always want you to look down and still know, where'd you learn it from? How's my dust taste? Because only you know. But here's what, as I'm thinking about Jesus saying, hey, follow me, and I think about the rabbis who would say, may the dust of my feet be on your face. This is the picture I kept thinking of. And the thing I kept thinking is, do I ride this close to Jesus? Do I want to ride this close to him? Because sometimes it's gnarly. I'm chewing rocks and I'm spitting dirt. Sometimes it's really gnarly to ride this close to Jesus, but do I want to? Because on the other side of it is, I will never ride in life, ever, the same way as I do when I'm this close to Jesus. And then when my son said to me, Dad, if I fall, I'm going to fall into you. If I wipe out, I'm going to crash right into you. And I was thinking this last week, exactly. Because if you're this close to Jesus, where are you going to go if you crash? Right into him. And he doesn't fall. And this is part of the incredible beauty and power of being a disciple of Jesus, is even when you royally screw it up, because you will, I will, we do, you'll fall into his strength. But not if you're way back there. You'll fall on your own. And so my question is, how in the world do you ride this close to Jesus? Like, it's one thing to make an analogy out of it, but how do you do it? That's the rest of the series. For the next several weeks, we're going to talk about the framework of how we ride this close. What does it look like? What are the practices that we put in place that helps us stay tire to tire, and have his dust in our face, that we would actually become like him. Thanks, Matt. And as we do that this morning, there's really only two challenges in all of this. Challenge number one is for those of you in the room that would say, yeah, I'm a Christian. Okay, here's my question. Are you a disciple? They're not the same. Are you a disciple? And do you want to be? And so for some of you today, that's the only real challenge and takeaway I have for you. Is I hope you really walk away this week, and for the rest of the week, you really sit on this and you meditate on this and you take it serious. Don't just go really quickly in your head, yep, I do want to be. No. There's a cost. You're going to eat some dirt and rocks. There is a cost. Do you really want to be a disciple? And I hope all of you will say yeah. But I hope you'll at least have a moment where you sincerely sit with Jesus this question this next week. Do I really want to be one of your disciples? And am I right now? And then for others of us, I think here's the challenge. You can't be a disciple until you've stepped into the relationship. Like, have you actually had a conscious moment to say, I have very little figured out, but I can commit to this. I believe there's a God. Jesus is him. And I want him to be Lord of my life more than I am. And for the first time ever, maybe begin to step into that relationship. And maybe you've sat in this room for years. I've met plenty of people throughout the course of my life that have sat in church rooms just like this for year after year after year and never made a conscious decision. I want to give my life to Jesus. I'm done being ruler of my life and Lord of my life. I need to make him Lord of my life. And you don't even have to be in the room. Maybe you're watching online. Like, do I have to be in the room for this? No. You just need to be in a moment where sincerely you say to Jesus, you're Lord, I'm not. Take over and teach me how to ride right behind you. Please. And so as we go to the table, I think there's one of two responses this morning. Response number one is, Jesus, thank you for what you did for me on that cross. And Jesus, I want to genuinely be a disciple of yours. Begin to give me a hunger and a thirst for it like I've never had. And response number two, I want to step into relationship with you, Jesus. I want to sincerely be in friendship with you. Know your saving grace that cleanses me, that restores me, and that secures me for all eternity. I want to know that and know how to walk with you. And I'm saying yes today to you, Jesus. You know, it's interesting to me. I mean, this all happened for the first time with Jesus and his disciples at the Last Supper, right? The night of his betrayal, the night that he'd be arrested, tried, hours later executed. Like, if there's ever a night when you know you're going to die in a few hours, horrifically, horribly, and be betrayed, if there's ever a night to go, I need a little me time, it's that night. And instead, Jesus did what he always did, and he made it about everybody else around him. And I think a significant reason why he did in that moment, instead of retreating to go, man, I got to get myself ready for what's to come, is because of this. Because he knew he had to institute in that moment what would happen for thousands and thousands of years until he comes again, where his church would celebrate as vivid a picture as we can create of what we cannot see that happened 2,000 years ago, but we believe, where the God of creation humbled himself to the point of death and death on a cross for you, for me, for us, that we could enter into that relationship and then begin to enter into discipleship. So we're going to open up these tables this morning. There's several up front, up in the top, and there's a few in the back. And the way we're going to do this is just invite you to come forward when you're ready. So as the band leads us in the next couple of moments, you may wait a minute, you may worship for a minute, and then come forward. You may come forward right away, but I want you to have a sincere moment before you come up to acknowledge this. Jesus, you are Lord, you are good, you gave your life for me. As I celebrate that reality, I'm here to say I'm giving my life to you as well, whether again this morning or for the first time ever. So God, I just thank you. I thank you today that you are present, that I do believe you have spoke. And I just pray that we've listened and we've heard. And more than just listened and heard, that we will respond. And so God, this morning we celebrate you, Jesus, your crucifixion and your resurrection. And the resurrection is where our hope hangs. There is no resurrection without first the cross. And there is no remission of sin without the shed blood of your Son, Father. And so we thank you for Jesus. We thank you for his sacrifice. And we thank you for the power that is your Spirit within us that enables us in all the things that you require of us and invite us into. And so may our worship be sweet to your ears. In Jesus' name, amen.
Worthy of every song we could ever sing.
last time Jesus ever sat in human form, he looked at his friends, of which you and I are. He said, every time you gather, you do this in remembrance of me. And they had no idea in that moment what he was talking about. Days later, it would become very clear what he meant. It's very clear to us now. But we do this in remembrance of what they didn't realize he was yet to do when they watched him ripped apart for them, for us, for me, for you. And so together, church, we do this in remembrance of him. And now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine, may he be the one who you walk so closely with this week that you are covered in the dust of his feet. Jesus, empower us to be you, to be with you, to be like you, to do what you did, to be true disciples by identity, not merely name, to drink deeply of the well of life that is the water that flows through you, able to flow into us, that we would also be that appealing water to every place and person we go to this week. In your name, in your power, to your glory, and to the benefit of humanity, we say, amen. Hey, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Sunday.